My name is Zion. I've mopped every inch of the Royal Crown Hotel lobby for 6 straight years. And yet, the place never stops looking down at me. All marble tiles, velvet chairs, and people who walk like their shoes cost more than my entire month's salary. I never cared. Not until she arrived. She didn't come like the others. No camera flashes. No entourage. Just a sleek black van that parked outside in silence. And a woman in a wheelchair rolled in without a word. The receptionist whispered behind her screen, "That's Alina Farouk, the billionaire tech heiress. Paralyzed in a skiing accident 2 years ago. Doesn't talk. Doesn't smile. Doesn't need anyone." I didn't know why that stuck with me. She came to the restaurant lounge every evening at sunset. Sat at the same corner table. Ordered nothing. Said nothing. Just stared at the horizon beyond the floor-to-ceiling glass. Some staff were scared of her. Others pitied her. I just noticed her, not in the way people notice beauty or wealth, but the kind of noticing that happens when you see pain dressed in silence. She reminded me of someone, maybe because I knew that look, the quiet war behind the eyes. I saw it in the mirror every day when I kissed my 6-year-old daughter Noor goodbye, tucked my mop under my arm, and walked into this palace of strangers. That evening, I was cleaning under her table when our eyes met for the first time. Sharp. Unblinking. Not cold, just distant. I nodded respectfully and moved away. As I pushed my cart back down the hall, I found myself wondering, does she cry when no one's watching? I shook the thought off. It wasn't my business, but the next day I left a fresh white rose from the garden near her table before my shift ended. No card, no note. Just a rose. She didn't react. Not the first day. Or the next. But on the 4th day, the rose was gone. That was enough. It started small. I'd finished my mopping earlier and sit a little longer by the service counter, close to her table. Sometimes I'd pretend to polish the same railing twice just to stay nearby. One evening, I was humming Noor's favorite song, an old lullaby my late wife used to sing. I wasn't loud, just soft enough to calm my nerves. That's when I heard her speak for the first time. "You're off key." I looked up, shocked. Alina was staring straight at me, lips curled slightly in the hint of a smile. "I beg your pardon?" I said, unsure if she was serious or mocking me. "You've been humming that same song for 3 days," she replied. "Still off key," I chuckled nervously. "My daughter says the same. Guess I need a teacher." She didn't smile. But she didn't look away either. That was progress. The next evening, I took a leap. I walked up to her table slowly, holding a clean napkin in one hand. "Do you mind if I sit for just 2 minutes?" I asked, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. "My feet are staging a protest." She raised an eyebrow, but then, surprisingly, nodded once. I sat, wiped my forehead, and smiled. "Zion," I offered my hand. "Single dad, professional mop pilot, terrible singer, worst dancer you'll ever meet." For a second, I thought I saw a flicker of amusement in her eyes. She didn't shake my hand. But she said, "Alina, paralyzed, trained to ignore people. Like you." It wasn't rude, just honest. I smiled again. "Then let's confuse your training." She scoffed softly, but her eyes lingered on mine a little longer that night. The conversations were short at first. One-word replies, dry sarcasm. But she listened when I spoke of Noor, of how she'd sneak cookies into my lunchbox, or how she made a Best Dad award from cardboard and glitter. Alina would roll her eyes. "You talk a lot for a janitor," she said once. "You listen a lot for someone who doesn't care," I replied. That time, she didn't deny it. A week later, she asked, "Why do you tell me all this?" I looked her straight in the eye, because no one else does. She blinked, once, slowly, and that silence said more than 1,000 words. One evening, I found her in the hallway outside the lounge, staring at the stairs. She was breathing heavier than usual. "Do you need help?" I asked gently. She didn't respond. Then whispered, "Sometimes I dream I'm running. And when I wake up, it hurts more." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I don't know what that feels like," I admitted. "But I know what it's like to want something so badly it hurts to breathe." She looked at me. No walls, no pride. Just raw, silent pain. Then she said, "You think I'll ever walk again?" I took a breath and said the words that would change both of our lives. "If you let me try, I'll help you walk." She laughed. Not cruelly, just broken lie. Then wiped her cheek. "You're the only one stupid enough to say that to me." And that's when I knew she didn't need a miracle. She needed someone who wouldn't walk away. After that night, after I told her I'd help her walk, something shifted between us. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. But the next evening, she was waiting, not at her usual table, but in the quiet banquet hall down the corridor, where no guests ever went this time of year. A place where no one could see her try or fail. She sat there, arms folded, staring out the tall arched windows. I walked in with my mop bucket, pretending it was just another day. Coincidence? I asked. She didn't look at me. "You brought resistance bands," she said plainly. I smiled and held them up. "I know a few things from watching old rehab videos. Plus, my daughter broke her leg last year jumping off the couch. I had to learn." "Fast," Alina sighed. "You're not a therapist." "Nope," I agreed, kneeling beside her chair. "But I'm patient. And I'm not afraid of failure." She turned to face me fully. Her eyes held something I hadn't seen before. Vulnerability. "Let's begin then," she whispered. And just like that, we started. The first few days were rough. Her muscles were stiff, locked from years of disuse. She trembled just trying to lift her own legs. Every movement felt like a war against gravity. But I stayed calm, kept talking, kept encouraging. I cracked the worst jokes on purpose just to get her to roll her eyes. "If sarcasm burns calories," I said once, holding her foot steady, "you'd be running marathons already." She gave a dry smile. That was enough. One night, as she tried lifting herself with the support bar, her arm gave out and she slipped forward, right into my arms. For a second, we were frozen. Her breath was ragged. Her pride wounded. "I can't," she whispered. "I'm done. I didn't let go. You're not done. You're just tired." Tears gathered in the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them away, furious. "You don't get it. You still have your life. I don't." "I lost my wife to cancer when Noor was 3, I said quietly. She looked up at me, startled. "I used to be an electrician. Gave it up to take care of Noor full-time. Became a janitor. No family support. No miracle money. Just days, long days." I gently helped her sit upright again. "But I learned," I said, kneeling in front of her, "that life doesn't end with the first collapse, or the second, or the 20th. It ends only when we decide it's over." Alina didn't speak, but she didn't argue either. We fell into a rhythm. Every evening, after my shift, I'd bring Nora's old portable speaker, play her favorite music, and gently guide Alina through stretches and strengthening drills. She started holding herself straighter. Her grip got firmer. Her eyes began to glow with tiny sparks of challenge. Once, she even teased me. "You look ridiculous doing squats in that janitor uniform." I grinned. "That's rich, coming from someone who throws towels at me when she misses a stretch." "You deserved it," she muttered. Progress. One particular evening, I brought Noor with me. She tiptoed into the hall, wide-eyed and shy. "Hi," she said to Alina, holding out a drawing. "I made you walk in this one." Alina blinked at the picture, a crayon drawing of herself standing beside me, arms in the air. It was messy, childish, beautiful, You gave me legs, Alina murmured. Noor giggled. But Baba says you already have them. You just forgot how to use them. Alina looked at me, this time not with pity or curiosity, but with something deeper. Respect. A week later, it happened. We were mid-session. I was helping her shift her weight from the wheelchair to the balance bars. Then, without warning, she did it. She stood. Not fully. Not long, but on her own, just for 3 seconds, then collapsed back into the chair. Gasping. Silence filled the hall. Her fingers trembled. My heart pounded. She looked down at her legs, then up at me, and she smiled. A real, glowing, tear-laced smile. I felt it, she whispered. I actually felt my leg hold me up. I knelt beside her, unable to hide my emotion. You did more than that, I said. You proved something. Her voice cracked. Proved. What? That you never lost your strength. You just stopped trusting it, she sobbed quietly. I was so afraid to try. Because what if I failed again? I reached up and wiped her tear with the cuff of my sleeve. Then I'll be here. To catch you again. And again. And again. 2 months had passed. The woman who once stared coldly at sunsets now argued over the tempo of her rehab music. Noor's playlist is childish, Alina said, crossing her arms. I laughed. That's because she is a child. She has awful taste in music. And yet, she's the reason you're standing 2 seconds longer than yesterday, Alina groaned. You're impossible. I get that a lot, I smirked. But beneath all that banter, something had changed. Not just in her body, but in her spirit. She wasn't just trying anymore. She was believing. I caught her practicing alone once in the hall, gripping the railings tight, her knuckles white but her posture steady. She didn't know. I was watching, and when she almost fell, she didn't call me. She straightened her shoulders and tried again. One morning, Mr. Korekshi, the hotel manager, called me into his office. Zion, are you training Miss Farouk after hours? I paused. Yes, sir. He stared at me like I'd confessed to stealing gold. You're a janitor. Yes, sir. She's a billionaire guest. This is inappropriate. With respect, I said calmly. I asked her permission. She said yes. And it's helping. Her? He leaned back unimpressed. And if she falls? If she sues? She won't. Are you willing to put your job on the line? I hesitated. Then nodded. Yes. Because by then, I wasn't just helping her walk. She was helping me stand taller too. That same night, Alina sat with Noor while I cleaned the front lobby. The sight was surreal. 2 people from completely different worlds, coloring in silence. She's strong, Alina told me afterward. I nodded. She had to be. She looked away. So did I, but I forgot. I sat beside her. Maybe you just needed someone to remind you. Alina's voice dropped. You're that someone. For a moment, the world slowed down. No chandeliers. Number. Mops, no money. Just 2 broken people quietly healing each other. It was Noor's school function the following week. I asked Alina, almost jokingly, want to come? She blinked. In a wheelchair, among a sea of dancing kids? You can hide behind the snacks. To my surprise, she said yes. Noor squealed when I told her. Alina came in a long sky blue dress. Modest and beautiful, her hair tied neatly. People stared. Of course they did. A billionaire in a wheelchair escorted by the hotel janitor? The room buzzed, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she wheeled forward to Noor and said, show me your best move, superstar. Noor danced. Alina clapped, laughing like I'd never seen before. That night in the parking lot, I helped her back into the van. She hesitated, her hand on my arm. I used to think people only saw me as weak, she said. They don't, I whispered. Not anymore? The next morning, the hotel got its biggest surprise yet. It was raining lightly. The marble lobby was gleaming. And for the first time, Alina entered not in her wheelchair. But on crutches. Slowly. Gracefully. Every eye turned, every breath held. The receptionist nearly dropped her pen. I was standing near the flower stand when I saw her. And froze. She met my eyes from across the lobby and smiled. A smile that said, "I did it." I walked toward her, not running, not rushing, just proud. When I reached her, I whispered, "You sure you want to do this here?" She nodded. "Let them see." That afternoon, the news spread like wildfire. Billionaire heiress walks again, trained by hotel janitor. Some were inspired. Some were scandalized. The media camped outside. But Alina didn't hide. She called a press conference, something she hadn't done in years, and in front of a sea of microphones, she said, "I had access to the world's best doctors. But what I needed was someone who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, a man society ignores. A single father who cleaned the floor beneath my chair, and still looked me in the eye with respect." She looked straight at me in the back of the room. And that man taught me to stand. The hall was silent. No one had words, not even me. That night, she rolled back into the banquet hall, her wheelchair in the corner, untouched. Big speech. I teased. She laughed. "Did I oversell you?" I grinned. "Just a little." She turned serious. "You gave me my life back, Zion." I stepped closer. "You gave me mine too." We stood there, not touching, not speaking, just breathing in the moment. Then she said softly, "Do you know the first thing I'll do when I can walk without crutches?" "What?" She smiled. "Dance." I chuckled. "I hope you're okay dancing with a terrible dancer." She looked up. "I already am." It had been exactly 94 days since I first told her, "I'll help you walk." Back then, she laughed. Now, she was walking across the marble floor of the Royal Crown Ballroom, without a wheelchair, without crutches. Just her legs, shaking. Stubborn and stunning. I stood across from her, motionless, terrified to blink. Noor held her breath beside me, her tiny hands clutching a bouquet of wildflowers she'd picked from the garden earlier that morning. Alina took another step, and then another. She looked straight at me the entire time, and then she whispered, "I'm doing it." I whispered back, "You already did." The hall was silent. The chandeliers didn't sparkle, they watched. Even the floor didn't dare creak under her feet. When she finally reached me, she stumbled just slightly and landed in my arms, the same way she had months ago. Only this time she wasn't falling. This time, she was flying. Later that evening, Noor slept curled up on the couch in my small staff housing room. I sat beside Alina in the garden behind the hotel, under a sky scattered with stars. There was no media now. No pressure. Just two people who had walked through fire and found each other on the other side. She turned to me. "I never told you why I stopped trying to walk," she said softly. I looked at her. She continued, "It wasn't the pain or the fear. It was the humiliation." She paused. "When I first got injured, everyone rushed to help. They were kind, too kind. But soon, their kindness turned into pity. They talked around me, not to me. Like I was already gone." I nodded, listening. "My own fiancé," she whispered, "left 3 months after the accident. Said he wanted a complete partner." I looked at her sharply, anger in my throat. She smiled bitterly. "I told myself I'd never trust anyone again. Then why me?" I asked gently. She looked down. "Because you had nothing to gain. From me, you didn't try to fix me. You just stood beside me." We sat in silence for a while. Then she said the words that stayed with me forever. "You reminded me I was still human." A week later, the ballroom was reserved for a private event. There were no guests. No photographers. No VIPs. Just music. Soft. Instrumental. The kind Nora loved to fall asleep to. Alina stepped into the room wearing a soft white dress, modest and beautiful. Her blonde hair was tied in a loose bun. I stood there in my usual black janitor uniform, cleaned and pressed for once, holding out my hand. She took it, slowly. We began to dance. Her steps weren't perfect. Mine were worse, but it didn't matter, because we were moving. Together. She rested her head gently on my shoulder. I whispered, "Still think I'm a terrible dancer?" She chuckled. I cried after. "That first laugh, remember?" I smiled. "Yes." Because I realized that laugh wasn't broken. It was healing. Afterward, we sat at our usual table, the one where she never used to speak. Now she wouldn't stop smiling. I took out a small box from my coat pocket. No ring. Just something folded inside. She opened it. It was a handwritten note. "Let's keep walking. One step at a time. Together." She looked up at me with wide, glassy eyes. And for the second time since I'd met her, she cried. Not from pain. Not from hopelessness. But from something stronger than both. Love. 3 months later, I left my janitor uniform behind. Not because I was ashamed of it, but because the man I was while wearing it had walked a billionaire to life again. I opened a small physical therapy center for trauma patients with mobility challenges. Alina funded it, but she didn't put her name on it. She put mine, Nor Wellness Center, because every step matters. She's still walking, and now she dances. Sometimes in front of hundreds at charity events, sometimes alone in the garden with Nor, but her favorite, still with me, on silent nights. With no music. Just heartbeats. I still mop sometimes. Old habits, but these days, the floor I mop is in the same room where she trains others how to rise again. People ask her, "How did you walk again?" She always says the same thing. Because someone believed I could when I no longer did. And me? I don't need speeches. I just stand beside her, like I did the very first time. Not because she needs me anymore, but because I never stopped needing. U.S. The end.